The following program is brought to you by Podcast One Sportsnet. Don't forget to download our new Podcast One app.
He's defeated every champion from every organization the sport of mixed martial arts has ever seen and retired from the octagon as the biggest draw and the industry's highest paid athlete of all time. And now Chael Sonnen's on PodcastOne.com. And for that, you're welcome.
What's happening, guys? Happy Wednesday, and thank you for joining another special episode of You're Welcome. I'll tell you, big fights over the weekend. I was out in Honolulu. We just had an awesome time out there with Bellator MMA. I have never been in an arena quite like the one I was in Honolulu. The Hawaiian fans specifically come out to support their own like I'd never seen before. And I was watching this fight with Josh Thompson, and Josh had told me, hey, wait till the main event. Wait till Ilima-Lei McFarland walks out. You're going to have an experience like you've never had before. And he said that he had been there when BJ Penn fought Gomi a number of years ago on a promotion called Rumble on the Rock. And sure enough, when the main event, I mean, they had chants, they had signals, they had songs they sang, and they were all in unison. They just knew what to do. They knew how to be fans and support their own. And I'll tell you, when that was over, I had just enough time to catch the co-main and the main for the UFC. And when you look at Al Iaquinta and Kevin Lee, it was a rematch. And so many people didn't know that. Kevin Lee has been wanting this fight for the longest, I want to say about 3 years now. They had fought on an undercard, and Al got over him, and Kevin just thought, man, I can change the outcome. What we found out is both guys have progressed at very similar rates. So they got a very similar outcome. And I thought you had two really great fighters. And, 155 is just murderer's row, in my opinion. As a bigger guy that's been in the heavyweight class or the light heavyweight class, we do not go that deep. We have never had to run 5 and 6 and 7 guys deep that on any given night could leave with the world championship. It is such a hard class. So in this particular fight, you've got two former number one contenders. I mean, we put two champions together, and what a marquee fight that is. Well, this is the next best thing. You have two guys that were the former number one contenders, so they got there and fight in a rematch, and it was similar to the first one. Look, Kevin Lee did a great job. He pushed the pace. He showed his athleticism. He showed his wrestling skills. He showed his grappling abilities. Al did the same thing. That's just simply what happened, and we really got to pick up on Al's durability. I followed Al's career very closely. I did not know that he was in that level of fitness. I did not know he had the ability to push that hard in the 4th and 5th rounds. I learned that the night he fought Khabib, and I think if anything might have come from his win over Kevin Lee, it was to also make sure to go back and fix the narrative post-Khabib fight. I heard some ridiculous things after that fight. I heard that Khabib's stand-up didn't look good, that Khabib's wrestling wasn't as great as everybody thought. I heard some reporters, reputable reporters with reputable outlets, saying that Khabib wanted to fight Conor, and he knew if he put it down on Al, that Conor would be at home and go, I don't want to do that fight. So he carried Al so that Conor would think, well, there's some opportunity and I could beat him. Level of ridiculousness. But what we found, but this was still the narrative. Ridiculous or not, that's just a sport that we live in, right? Perception is reality, and this was what was being talked about. Now we found out, no. Al is just a really strong opponent. Al Iaquinta can go hard 22 minutes in and 24 minutes in and with a black eye and with a busted up nose. He can still push hard. And I really think that Al served himself well to also fix and correct the Khabib talking points. Al is Khabib's hardest opponent. Al gave Khabib the closest fight that he's ever had. That's what happened. And now we're starting to see how good he is. And I really like where Al was going after this fight. I saw some media. I think it was Ariel Helwani tried to steer him into, hey, what do you do next? It's always the question you have to ask a guy. And Al said, well, if you want to follow the sport in the rankings, you got to give me Conor next. If they want to do a big money fight, maybe that takes me out of it and it's somebody else. I don't know what Conor wants to do. If he wants to be a sportsman and a competitor like I am, then we're going to have to fight, and the winner can go on from there. I like that answer because it was so true. So many guys want Conor McGregor because he is the money fight, because he is the big exposure fight, but nobody will ever talk about it. They just tried to insert themselves in there. Al came out and just told the truth. Yeah, if you're looking for a big draw, maybe that isn't me right now. Maybe it is. I don't know how that'll play out. But if you're looking to follow the rankings, Conor and I are now next to each other. Okay, well, there's something I can get behind. And I'll tell you, as you look earlier in the night, if you guys got to see Dan Hooker versus Barboza, it did leave us with a couple of thoughts. And that was a kind of beating that nobody should have to take for as long as Dan Hooker took it. And when you are a fighter, it's very honorable. Dan Hooker will go in the back, and the fellow fighters will stand out of the way and pay him his due and his respect. The fighters are very rough and tumble guys that want those rocky moments. They want to show their heart, their toughness, their durability, their grit. They want to show that. I understand that. I understand that a fighter wants to do that. When that carries over to a corner man, that's when I have when a flag goes up for me, okay? When the fighter comes out with the mentality of, I am willing to die in the ring, okay, great. That's great. And you show that, and it's compelling, and there's a tremendous honor in that. But there is also a very obvious irresponsibility with those words. So that thought process and that psychology and that perceived toughness cannot carry over to an adult in the room who is in the corner with a towel over his shoulder that cannot hesitate to throw that in. And when I see some of these corners allowing their fighters to take these beatings, I will tell you, for me as a cornerman, I am stopping that fight as soon as my fighter can no longer win the fight. As soon as it is clear that they have slowed down and they are damaged and their eyes are shut and their body is hurting and they are exhausted and they are not as good of an athlete, whatever mathematical deductions I have to make when my fighter can no longer win is when we are headed to the back. And it won't be on him. It will not be on the fighter. I will make that decision, which is why he trusted me to be in his corner, and is why the state overseeing it gave me a license, because I am a clear-headed adult in the room. And it's the whole reason I brought the towel to cage side. And if one of my cornermen sat on a towel, I was taking that kind of beating, they had better be prepared to take that same beating when I get to practice on Monday. And I feel that Dan Hooker, as honorable as this was, and within our sport, we do see that. And this is a very precious moment, and Dan will be looked at for what he is, which is a true warrior for the rest of his life, and there's something very special in that. But this isn't the first time we've seen somebody take a beating in a fight that should have very clearly been stopped because they had no more opportunity to win. The goal transferred to see how long can I hang in there. But what is the benefit of that? That's what really has to be questioned. And I will also tell you, I don't know how to fix this. I don't come to you with a suggestion. I have many times questioned the rounds. When we have 5-round fights, I have questioned that. We have seen fighters as recently as Yoel Romero and Robert Whitaker who went the full 25 minutes, and neither of them has fought since. The fight was so bad, and there was injury sustained, one that required surgery, another that required a cast, and neither athlete has been able to suit up and go to work again since. I suspect the same will be with Yair Rodriguez and the Zombie. And please don't fact correct me. I'm well aware there was 1 second left in the contest when the fight was stopped. But I do not think we will see either of those fighters be able to suit up and go to work again for a meaningful period of time. I argue that 5 rounds is too long. Now, what surprised me was I had some pushback from people. They said, oh, no, 5 rounds is great. What's he talking about? Well, I cannot respect you if you tell me 5 rounds is great. You have now showed me that you're not a sophisticated thinker. If you want to argue with me when I tell you 25 minutes is too long, and you want to come in and go, no, it should be 7 rounds, it should be 9 rounds, I can now at least know that you're a thinker. I may disagree with your thought, but I can at least now know that you're a thinker. If you go, oh, no, 5 rounds is great. Why would 5 rounds possibly be great? Just on a simple level playing field of logic. It was an arbitrary number that was picked 15 years ago. Nothing in the sport that was arbitrarily picked 15 years ago still stays with us today. They have changed the weight classes. They have changed the regulations. They have changed the weigh-in times. They have changed the procedures that an athlete must go through just to get a license. But for some reason, some of you are telling me that the arbitrary 5 rounds that was pulled out of thin air and used as an experiment to go, let's just see what happens, somehow is the perfect number. That's just silly. Even combat such as boxing, if you were to look back at the 80s, the heyday, when I was growing up and I was watching with the true 4 horsemen, I'm talking about Hearns, Leonard, Hagler, Duran. Those guys were fighting 15 rounds. You don't see Mayweather and Canelo in there. You don't see Fury and Wilder and Joshua in there 15 rounds. They didn't just shave a round off like I'm suggesting, or 2 rounds off like I'm suggesting. They shaved 3 rounds off. So for the people who have pushed back on my premise that the athletes are simply out there too long, go right ahead if you want to add more rounds. We can then debate that, but to tell me, oh no, 5 rounds is perfect. How would it possibly be perfect? How would 5 rounds possibly be perfect? You have to understand, sport was in a different place when that was picked. The 5 rounds was picked largely because of a fight that took place between Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock that was scheduled for no time limit. Well, a half hour into it, the producers of the television show realized, we can't leave these guys out here all night. We got to do something. At some point, we got to fade to black and roll the credits. So even though it was not within the rules, they made a rule while the contest was going, and they go, okay, 30 minutes, we're calling this thing a draw. We're stopping it. We're moving on to the next fight. So some other guys looked at it, they go, yeah, 30 minutes, that was pretty close. That looked about right to me. Let's do 5 rounds. We'll give them a minute rest in between. Boom, that takes you up to your 30 minutes. Let's see what happens from there. Well, what we found out that happened from there was that the sport got tougher, the athletes got better, and 25 minutes was more than the human body was made to do. I think you can make that same argument on 15 minutes, quite frankly. I haven't the foggiest idea how we settle in on 15 minutes. It's a very long time. One, for as a fan, I don't enjoy watching something that long. I just think that's a little bit too long. You got to get out there. You got to prove your point to me. We got to go home. That's for me as a fan. I could, of course, point to a number of 15-minute fights where I go, wow, that was fantastic. I'd have loved to have seen a 4th round. Sure, I could do that. But now I'm being selfish and thinking about me, and I'm not thinking about the contestants that are in there. So I think one way to solve the problem of these guys who are too tough for their own good possibly is to visit the round situation. I would also question what gets a fight stopped. I haven't the foggiest idea. I feel as though Dan Hooker was failed in 2 different departments. Like a mountain climber or like a window washer on top of a skyscraper, you have a secondary safety mechanism in place in case the first one fails you so that you can live. The first one that failed Dan Hooker was the referee. That fight should have been stopped. When the referee and that built-in mechanism failed him, he then has to go to a secondary mechanism, which is a trusted corner man. Ariel Helwani had brought up a point on Ariel and the Bad Guy. Only on ESPN Plus, by the way. It was a perspective that I had not heard before, and it wasn't an overly sophisticated perspective. I just hadn't heard it before, and he said, look, you have to understand the pay structure of MMA. You are generally paid to show up, and then you are paid an equal amount should you win. Your corner man, traditionally, who is your coach, is in on that. 5%, 10%, whatever it could be, but he is in on a percentage of the business done that night, so he has a financial interest in not stopping the contest. I had not thought about it from that perspective, and Ariel's way of solving that wasn't just to sit the coaches down and say, hey, do what's best for your athlete. His way of solving that was to do away with the win bonus, to come up with a number that an athlete is given to participate. Okay. I mean, you could take some incentive away. I mean, there's a reason they do the show and win. I'm not 100% up to speed on that, but I see his point. That's a little bit different direction than I was going to go with it, but I can't deny that he makes a very fair point. I have wondered myself, why are they leaving those athletes out there so long? I can look back on Junior Dos Santos fights versus Cain Velasquez, where that fight was very, very clear in the first round who the winner was going to be. By the time the second round ends and you're starting the third round, you're saying, man, why are they even letting him off his stool? Between the third and the fourth round, you're saying, what is going on here? Both of Junior's eyes are shut. He is slowed down. He is exhausted. He is now a punching bag. What are we still doing here? I think that the Ortega versus Max fight is a very fair one to bring up. And I can tell you when I started in this sport, this is a rough sport. I'm a rough guy. I am not a prude on these topics. When I talk to you about things have changed and nothing is the same in the sport that it was 15 years ago, but some of you are still locked in on the arbitrary number of 5-minute rounds, and in main event situations, 5 of them. And I'm well aware that Barboza Hooker does not fall under that. But it does fall under the argument, well, maybe they should be 4-minute rounds. What are we going to do to protect these athletes? What are we going to do to protect a tough guy from himself so that he can still get up on Monday morning and be with his family and be back in the gym in a reasonable period of time and then go back to work in 2 to 3 months and go out and compete again? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it, and what is going to be done? I don't have the answers, guys. I don't even have speculation on those answers. The only thing I have successfully done, and I'm attempting to do for you guys right now, is to identify that there appears to be a bit of a problem. And something needs to be done. We're in a similar situation with the weight cutting issue, where people are falling off the scale and they're dehydrated and they're ended up in the hospital and they're telling these horror stories after the fact. And Andy Foster in California stepped in and said, enough's enough. I've heard we're going to make some changes. Whether I have the authority to change the sport or not, I can change it within these lines. My municipality of the state of California. I'm telling you now, Andy Foster is going to be looked back very fondly in MMA for seeing this and taking action. The next one appears to be, what are we going to do for these fighters that are too tough for their own good? When I started in this sport, the way it was explained to us in the locker room before we went out there, if you were hit 3 times without doing something back, you were now eligible for stoppage. I can't tell you a number of fights that I actually saw that happen, but that was still explained to us ahead of time. If you took 3 punches without answering back in some fashion, you were eligible for the referee to step in and stop the fight. Some guys, like Dan Hooker, that don't fall down, it puts him in a hard spot. It's very hard to stop a fight when the guy is still standing up. Look back at a fight you guys might remember, Mayweather versus McGregor. It's very hard for the referee to step in, and eventually he did, and he did the right thing. But it's just very tough for a referee to call a TKO while the guy is still standing. We saw Dan Hooker take shots amongst the head, the face, the legs, the body, in repeated fashion, without answering, where he was clearly hurt, where he was on fumes, and licensed adults in the room did not intervene.
You're listening to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen.
Alexa isn't the only one with breaking news. Make sure to hang around at the end of this podcast for the latest breaking headlines on the AP News Minute.
It's me, Shaq, the general of Podcast One Sportsnet, your stop for the best sports podcasts. We've got it all in one place, from Steve Austin to Jim Harbaugh, Dan Patrick, the official Lakers podcast, and more. Podcast One Sportsnet is where it's all going down. So whatever sport you're watching or interviews you want to hear, or if you just want to laugh here, you know what off with my show. It's all happening here. Download the Podcast One app and click on Podcast One Sportsnet in the bottom right corner. I'm the general, and I'm ordering you to give it a try. You'll thank me later. And don't forget to listen to the Big Podcast with Shaq every Monday.
As a fighter, you need confidence. You need assurance that your fists, your feet, and your muscles are all on point. And the same train of thought applies to your hair. Our sponsor, Hair Club, knows all about this. And they're inviting you to become part of the Hair Club family to see how getting the most out of your hair can change your life. Hair Club is the leader in total hair solutions with a legacy of success for over 40 years. Whether you're looking to revitalize the growth of your own hair or to learn more about hair replacement or restoration, Hair Club's professionally trained stylists, hair health experts, and consultants will craft a personalized solution to ensure you feel your best and get the most out of your hair. And just for listeners of this program, if you go to hairclub.com/Chael today for free, you will get a hair analysis and a take-home hair kit. That's a $300 value. Again, that's hairclub.com/Chael for a free hair analysis and a take-home hair kit to see for yourself just how powerful great hair can be. Experience your hair and your life at its best only with Hair Club.
Now, back to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen.
I have my longtime teammate, who is now my coach, in studio today, Ed Herman. Ed, do you have an opinion on that? And I would love to get yours, because you and I do go back. I mean, it seems like yesterday, but we've been doing this sport since I was late 90s. You were very early 2000s. The rules have changed. The skills have changed. The athletes that you're in there with and what they're able to do and the power in which they're able to do it has changed, but the rules haven't. Are you at least seeing this? Am I out on a limb here, or did you see what I saw in this Dan Hooker fight?
I agree. You brought up some great points. With the flat rate pay, something I would be fond of. A guy like me, I'm kind of too tough for my own good. I'm one of those guys where whether I win or lose, I'm going to put on a show. And when you walk out of there with half the money, it can be a lot tougher.
Sure.
So that flat rate can apply for some guys, maybe not for everybody. Maybe not everybody's going to fight as hard on a flat rate. So there does need to be some type of incentive, but I don't know what that is either.
What would you say about the round system? I feel as though I make an argument that's bulletproof when I don't even go back over history. I don't bring you all of the 5-round fights that actually went all 5 rounds. I just bring you the last 2. I feel like when I just have to simply look back at Whitaker and Romero, neither of which has fought since because they couldn't, because they were injured, I think that I make a compelling argument.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit fight. I don't know if those guys were the same after that fight. There's a number of fights we could bring up as an example, but I totally agree. I'm not sure what we can do about it. I'm not, 3 rounds I think is plenty. But after my last fight, I was ready to go another round because I knew it was close. But again, that's me being the stubborn fighter where I need to have somebody on the outside with a level head taking care of me and looking out for my best interest.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that because, yes, as a fighter, you more or let's try this again or let's go back. I'm in the same boat. If I get beat back, I'll give me another chance, give me a rematch. What do I need to do? I fully understand that, but there does appear to be a level, and I think you're seeing this now that you have gotten into coaching, where somebody else has to be in the room. Somebody else has to be in the room to go, wait a sec, I've been down this path. Trust me. You'll build more memories. You'll have more experiences. You can come back and try to get the guy next time. So many things that you could do. And it also would help to elongate your career. You gave your entertainment tonight. You gave your effort tonight. But at some point, the night has to end. It just seems as though some of those contests are so incredibly long. And Ed, we're seeing this as guys have gotten better. The sport has had to change. The sport has had to adapt. The sport has had to, everything from the weight class. I started this, I never even saw a scale. It was my 4th or 5th fight before we even had a scale. There was no weight classes. It was just one group who wants to fight who. Okay, it's you guys, you versus you. There was no round system in place. You didn't have to wrap your hands. I'm just saying the sport has changed. It has changed immensely for the better without question, but the athletes have also improved. And to look back and think, okay, we're going to throw better athletes with greater talent and greater power for the same amount of time seems to me to be a little illogical.
Yeah, absolutely. The athletes are stronger, faster. You're getting guys choosing MMA over other sports now and pursuing a career in MMA as an athlete, where when we started, it wasn't necessarily the best athletes. It was the toughest guys around, and some wrestlers, and a lot of guys who never even wrestled. So it's changed so much. I mean, the athleticism in some of these guys is scary to some of the old dogs like us.
Right.
Even just guys like John Jones, man, physically and athletically are a cut above like so many guys. Look at the old school. Look at the Frank Shamrock, some of those guys who wouldn't last a round, let alone 5. And the longevity for us as athletes to take a 5-minute beating, we don't know all the long-term effects. I mean, they're starting to come out now. You're seeing it with football and some other sports, but I don't know what the call is. I'm not sure what we do.
Yeah. No, I don't either. I think that addressing the time and the rounds would be a great place to start, just based on logic. I logically think that if you do something dangerous, this is combat after all, for less amount of time, the odds are now a little bit in your favor. I'm right on that. That, at least in theory, would be a helpful start. Do you do away with the 5 rounds? Okay, and then people are going to push back because this Hooker-Barboza fight that I'm speaking of specifically was only a 3-round contest. Or even if you look at Ortega and Max, that was stopped prior to the 4th round, or after the 4th round prior to the point is it didn't go the whole time. This is a starting point, but it's not a finished product. There also seems to be something that needs to be done for these guys that are too tough for their own good. I mean, Ortega just simply would not fall down. Barboza finally went down, but it was to a point where Daniel Cormier, who was on the mic, was calling for the stoppage. That's not great. I do a lot of mic stuff. I can tell you the bosses are in your ear and they're like, hey, don't say that. This can make us look bad. And Daniel Cormier is a leader in the room. Still, no, this is bad. That fight should have been stopped. If the referee's not going to do it, his corner should have done it. And Hooker made it very clear, as Ortega did, I'm not going to do it. There's a toughness and an honor in that. I don't want to take that from those guys. I want to give them that pat on the back. What I'm saying is now we need somebody to supersede their opinion. And the cornerman cannot have the same, well, die in the ring opinion. Whoa, you got to lose your license. You can't talk like that if you're a cornerman.
Right. It's hard as a corner guy to stop a fight when you want your athlete to win. Obviously, you put in a lot of work with them and you want them to succeed, but you have to have that level head and be able to make that decision. But you see it in the smaller shows too. I remember shows where I was screaming, stop the fight. Maybe I'm not in the corner, but I'm out in the crowd going, what's going on here? Like, how come they're not stopping this fight? I've seen it in local shows, in the smaller shows. So they got to start from the ground up and really change the way we approach that. Because guys are getting hurt. Guys are going to have shorter careers, have bad experiences in the amateurs and maybe not pursue a career. We're talking about stuff that's going to affect us later in our lives.
Sure.
So someone needs to take a head on it. I fought in smaller shows where they had 4-minute rounds. You remember the IFL?
Yep.
They tried to do 4-minute rounds, no elbows. I think a little bit of that was for fighter safety, but they didn't stick around, whether they had a bad business plan or whatever it was. I don't know how we changed that. It's been 5-minute rounds since we started, really. or shortly after you started.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was time limits when you started.
Yeah, there was. We actually used to do one round back then. I fought Trevor Prangley at the Roseland. It was a 7-minute round, just by example. It was one round, and they kind of changed it up, but that was cool. I liked that. Pride had a pretty good system, I thought. I kind of like those long, 20-minute round, no breaks. Because that break just not only changed the position, but it recharges both again. Now they can go a little bit harder, and that could be good or bad. People can debate it. When you bring up the IFL, I do remember that. I remember the 4-minute rounds, and I remember the no elbows. And though they went under, it certainly was not because of that. Nobody ever complained, oh, I don't want to watch this because it's 4 minutes or there's no elbows. I don't want UFC, by example, and Bellator as well, but they still fight in jurisdictions where there's no elbows. The fans just don't know it. The fighters get told in the back, hey, by the way, we don't do elbows here. Oh, okay. Never even gets disclosed to the audience. I tell you that in case somebody goes, well, I wouldn't want to watch a fight if there was no elbows. You do watch them. You watch them right now. You just never took into account that through the whole night no elbows were thrown, and asked yourself why. Well, because the jurisdiction where it took place didn't allow them. So I would just tell you, it seems as though something has to be done before this becomes an epidemic. And those guys, I realize for the athletes, it's such a pat on the back, but we're having two different conversations. There is still somebody that oversees it. And Ed, I have never seen that I could state for you. Not to say it's never happened, but boy, that I've ever seen a cornerman lose his license for anything. I just simply haven't seen, and I haven't seen a referee for anything not be able to officiate again, save one example, which was Mario Yamasaki, who left an athlete out there too long. Now, that was up to his discretion. What cost Mario, and I was a Mario defender, but I couldn't defend him after this. He said, I wanted to allow her to be a warrior. And the reason that was a problem is there was no warrior clause. That is not what the rules call for, and that was not what he was put in there for. He made up a rule, he made up a clause, and then he invoked it. And when he came out and said I was allowing her to be a warrior, that's the mentality that I'm speaking to. The athlete gets to have that. The athlete gets to take that into training, into media, into marketing, and ultimately into the cage. It cannot extend beyond the athlete. There still has to be somebody that steps in and goes, yeah, not really concerned about how you want to go out. I just want to be concerned with, are you defending yourself and do you still have an opportunity to win? And if either of those is a no, I'm getting you out of here.
I agree. Live to fight another day. And again, you brought up the point of the cornerman is financially vested. So again, maybe there is some corner guys who aren't going to throw in that towel because it's an extra $5,000 in their pocket or 5% or whatever it may be.
Interesting point on that, huh?
So really, you'd hate to think that that's the case, but it could be in some situations. There is a lot of bad people in this sport who take advantage of fighters from the top to the bottom. So I don't know how you regulate that. Maybe the flat rate situation could help with that and help with fighter safety. If anybody's thought of that, that could be something huge. There needs to be more punishment for referees who don't stop fights soon enough. They catch a lot of crap on social media and from different people, but has there been anything handed down? Like you said, has there been suspensions to any of these referees who aren't stopping fights? Because I can think of a number of fights where you're going, man, I can't believe that fight wasn't stopped. What was that ref thinking?
Yeah, I don't even know if there's a talking to in the back or if the commissioner makes you look at. I don't know how that works. And you could extend that all the way to judges and scorecards. We've seen some ridiculous scorecards turned in, and then the fight ends up getting stopped. There ends up being a knockout or a submission, so it never went to the judges, but the judges still turned those scores in. You're going, you guys are way off. That's just simply not what happened. And I don't ever hear of them, getting delayed or laid off or stopped from show. You just don't hear about that. And so it does make you wonder, hey, if we have authoritative bodies, what is it they're doing? What exactly is happening? If we're hanging our hat on fighter safety, which has never been true, Ed, it's all about the revenue. But we're still using the argument for marketing purposes that this is about fighter safety. Okay, great. We got to have some suspensions then. I'm hearing about fighters getting suspended left, right, and center. Why don't I hear it about the officials? That part of it in and of itself should tell you, if you don't have a head count on your officials, but you do on the fighters, now you're doing marketing. 2018 has been a wild year in sports, and college football is going to go out with a bang as the college football playoff semifinals are set for Saturday, December 29th only on ESPN, with two back-to-back games starting with Clemson and Notre Dame at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic at 4 p.m. Eastern. Clemson has Notre Dame's number from their last meeting back in 2015. Then it's Alabama and Oklahoma at the Capital One Orange Bowl at 8 p.m. Eastern. These two teams are facing off for the first time since the 2014 Sugar Bowl. And don't forget, Oklahoma has beaten Alabama 3 straight times. The winner of the Orange and Cotton Bowl will face off in the national championship game presented by AT&T on Monday, January 7th, only on ESPN. Don't miss it. Let's switch gears. I feel like we're running this one into the ground. Let's switch gears because I'm so happy you're in here. What is next for you? You had that wonderful fight with Gian Villante. This is the first time I've got to see you. I texted you right after the fight. I actually ran into Gian himself out in New York after that fight. He had great things to say about it. He was such a nice guy. I must tell you that. He was so respectful even behind your back. He was just a genuinely good dude. But what's next for you after that fight?
I'm looking at March or April. I'm coaching high school wrestling and my son's club wrestling right now. So I'm training, but not as much as I'd like to. So I think that's a good timeline for me. I was a little banged up after that fight. Again, we talked about fighting for 15 minutes. That was plenty for my body. My mind was ready for more, I think, but I was pretty banged up. So I'm feeling no major injuries, but I'm feeling a lot better now. So looking for April or March.
Awesome. And no opponent yet? They haven't?
No.
Weight class, stay at 205?
Staying at 205 for sure.
Good for you.
Absolutely.
Life's better, right?
Life's way better.
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince all the young guys they should go up too. They'll enjoy their career better.
Go up, you'll enjoy your career. Yeah, it's not what you think. It's not like, well, that guy's strong. I mean, there's a trade-off for everything. Is he a little stronger? Yeah. Is he a little slower? Yeah, that's true too. I mean, there's just a trade. I'm with you on that. That whole cutting weight thing is really an American phenomenon. A lot of the foreign guys that come over, they don't go through that. We just believe in that here.
Right, I've noticed that a lot over the years. A lot of the foreign guys don't cut a lot. Maybe if they have a big wrestling background, they might cut a little bit more. Some of the Scandinavian countries like Sweden and stuff who may not have as much history in wrestling, you don't see those guys cutting as much weight a lot of time.
I will tell you this, as a fight fan, which is how my career started and how my career will end, I'm pretty excited for the rest of 2018 here. We got John Jones and Gustafsson right around the corner. And for me, that one's 4 years in the making. I wanted those guys to rematch as soon as that first fight concluded. We were told there'd be a rematch. EA Sports put these guys on the cover of the video game. I mean, they couldn't go. John Jones actually finally did an interview about it because he didn't want to do the rematch. And he finally did an interview. I can't get away from this guy. I finally got the office off my back. I can't get the fans off my back. I'm working on getting the media to talk about someone else. But now EA Sports puts us on the cover. I got to go do photo shoots with him. So I was compelled by that, though. I love the match. That is the match that I want to see. And I think there's a lot of questions there. What's John going to be like coming off a suspension? One, with the reduction of the vitamins, and two, was sitting around. He's not Joe Discipline that was in the gym every day. And we learned that when they tried to give him a fight at MSG, his home state, most decorated venue in the world. And he said, no, I can't do it. I haven't been training. I thought that was a big clue as to, okay, wait a second. If you're sitting down and you're not practicing something and getting better. But I must also tell you, I don't know what Gus has been up to. He's been out of the ring for 14 months. So there's enough question there for me to really look forward to this fight.
Absolutely. I mean, they've fought twice, right?
One time.
Just once. Yeah, I mean, that was a great fight. For some reason, I thought they fought twice, and the second one was closer, but my mistake. Great fight. I mean, Gustafsson won that fight in a lot of people's eyes. It was probably the most challenged John has ever been, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
Has anybody gave him that type of fight? I don't think so. I think he took John down multiple times. And John's been a dominant wrestler even against Daniel Cormier. So, maybe, styles make fights, and that's a great fight.
And what about Amanda and Chris Cyborg? If you would have asked about that fight a year ago, I'd say there's nothing to see here. But the mere fact, well, Amanda's been on an incredible run. The mere fact they're both champions. But the point that compels me is that Amanda asked for this fight. We have had people not only walk away from number one contenderships, Ed, because they don't want to fight Cyborg. We had the Iron Lady. Dramaine walked away from the strap, said, take it. Throw me back on the undercard. Put me in a different weight class. Do whatever the hell you want to do. Just don't put me in there with her. And Amanda Nunes called the UFC and said, I'm the one. Line it up. For me, Ed, I am compelled to see what is it that Amanda is seeing. When I see Cyborg fight on TV, I go, man, that's a great competitor. Amanda said, that's somebody I can beat. I got to watch. I don't need any more storyline. I have to watch.
As a fighter, you got to give her respect because nobody else is stepping up. And, Cyborg has been known as the best there is for women out there. She's been the most dominant female fighter ever. She's the baddest. So Amanda Nunes wants that title. She wants to be the baddest woman on the planet.
Let me put this into perspective for you real fast, okay? Chris Cyborg is so damn tough. She had a night off one time and signed up for a kickboxing event against the best kickboxer in the world and went out and fought her. Lost the fight, went out and fought her for the duration for something to do. Can you see that story and raise me one? Any competitor, can you see that story and raise? I know guys that go on 5-mile runs on their day off. I go, wow, that's real. It was your day off? She had a day off. She entered a kickboxing event against the world's best kickboxer for something to do.
There's a reason she's the baddest woman on the planet, man. I mean,
but doesn't that kind of tell you everything?
Yes.
It sure tells you a lot.
I mean, if you've seen her in person, her presence, I mean, she's intimidating to most men, even fighters. I mean, she is just unbelievably built, just a presence in the room. And like I said, the baddest woman on the planet. Yeah. You're the baddest man on the planet, right?
For sure.
She's the baddest woman on the planet.
Yes, I can only imagine. Hey, let me ask you this, though. Now that we've got the hype, now that we've broken down the fact that we want to see the fight and why, who wins that fight? I mean, Cyborg just too much for? Because there is a weight. Weight does come into play here.
It depends psychologically, too. A lot of people get beat before they get in the cage. That's why guys like Conor, the Diaz brothers, can be so dominant. They get in guys' head before the fight even starts. Now, she's done that to other women. Can she do that to Amanda?
Yeah, and that's a piece that I couldn't answer for you. I am inclined, though, to say she's not in Amanda's head. I am inclined because Amanda asked for the fight. Amanda saw something that she wanted in there with Cyborg. She could be bluffing. She could be trying to convince herself. She could change her mind at the last minute. I've seen athletes change their mind at press conferences before. But I'm inclined to lean towards, no, she will go in there and she will bring her skills. Here was always a knock on Amanda, Ed, and I heard this from her own teammates. I heard this from some coaches within her gym that said she's got to get this opponent out of here early. If the fight goes late, Amanda fades. I believed that. I perpetuated that because I was told this by such good sources. Ed, I have not seen that with my own eyes. When I see Amanda in a fight, and I will admit her first minute is harder than her last minute. I will admit that. But the last minute is still plenty hard. I have never seen her back down. I've never seen her crack. I've never seen her fade or wilt. In fact, I've never even seen her in a late and long fight where she wasn't the one pushing the pace. One person's going to be pushing it, right? So it's a dance. Only one person can lead at a time. I've never seen it not be her. So I don't really question her in the 25 minutes. I also had the same question with Chris, quite frankly, because nobody could get deep with her, but all of a sudden Holly Holm did. Holly Holm's in great shape, and she's a great competitor. She never backs down, and Chris pushed the pace on her. I mean, I don't know that that's a fair talking point, but I do hear people bring it up with both athletes. Just from what I've seen, it's not relevant.
I just don't know how you beat Cyborg. That could be the difference, though, going in there. You know as well as I do, if you go into a fight with a little bit of doubt, your chances go way down of winning. And I've won plenty of wrestling matches, plenty of fights where I was the underdog and I wasn't supposed to win, but I believed that I could. And I won those fights
for sure
many times, or those wrestling matches, and that's the difference. So if she can go in there, she could take down a legend.
Sure.
That's what it takes.
I'll give you a guess of how she beats Cyborg. She walks out there and blasts her in the face. Well, but the reason I say that is Holly Holm, great boxing, great kickboxing. Her output on Cyborg was not enough. She went into defensive mode in many ways very early on, and she held up, and she was durable, and she was tougher and held. But I have seen Holly bring more offense and have more output. Simply throw more punches, and some of them are going to miss, and some of them are going to land. I've seen her have more output, and if Amanda, so that's just the question I have on Chris Cyborg. Holly was the one to do it, but Holly didn't reach out and touch somebody enough times. If Amanda can do that, I mean, who knows? That's what we saw with Mike Tyson. I don't suggest for you that Chris Cyborg is going to wilt. I am sitting over here trying to speculate for you. For the day that we see that she gets brought down, how will it be? I remember seeing Mike Tyson, who was also very feared, when somebody named Evander Holyfield just kept reaching out and hitting him and wearing that battery down and making him think twice and making him question how bad do I want to be out here? Eventually, the answer came, as it does for all fighters, I don't need to be out here anymore. Maybe that's the way to get I don't know, because that's the only thing that hasn't been tested. I know you're not going to just go tackle her with a double leg. I know you're not just going to wear her down. I know you're not going to outstrength her. All of these things have been tested and failed, and I saw them happen. But I haven't seen somebody that could come out there with power and hit her and stay in the danger zone, take their punches back, and return punches. That's the one thing, that brawler, that Amanda does bring to the table, should she use her skills. So one thing that I haven't seen Cyborg have to deal with. So I can only present to you that perhaps that's the kryptonite.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go out there and you have to fight to win, not fight to not lose or fight to survive. Maybe that was Holly's mistake. Amanda Nunes has great reach. She hits hard, has really good, crisp technique with her, not only her kickboxing, but just her ones and twos, straight punches down the pipe are pretty amazing. So if she goes in there to win the fight, I mean, offense is defense, right? If you sit there and wait for them to attack first, it's just like, again, I'm going to reference back to wrestling because I've been coaching a lot of wrestling lately. Offense is defense. You can't sit there and wait for them to shoot first. You can't wait for them to attack first. You'll hear me as a coach saying, you go first, which is stuff we both came up on, you know, having Robert Follis in our corner, or, you know, some of the great guys that we've worked with, Clayton Hires. Go first. You go first. You let that guy taste blood first.
That's right. Don't wait. Don't wait. It's so true, particularly with 4-ounce gloves, though. It's so true. You know, I've seen those great Floyd Mayweather, who I think is about to get set up at the end of the year, by the way. You hear what's going on there? He's going out to Japan to do a fight in Ryzen.
I thought that was a joke.
No, that's right around the corner. That's next week. Whatever the New Year's show. When's New Year's? I mean, it's coming right up. Something very fugazi's happening there. They're bringing in Floyd Mayweather. It's a 3-round fight. Supposedly it will never go to the judges. There are no judges. It's an exhibition. It's a display. They're putting him against a 20 or 21-year-old Japanese kickboxer who they have under a long-term contract. Why would they bring in Floyd to let him beat a guy they've got under contract? There's just something fugazi going on there. Don't forget, this is Japan. I'll tell you one more thing about that, because something's getting ready to happen, and it stinks. But the guy who runs Ryzen, the guy who's like the president over there, he had a boxing match. Okay, who was this boxer? You would know the guy's name if I said it for you. You would definitely know the guy's name. I'll have to get back to you on it. I'm drawing a blank. But they brought a boxer over a number of years ago, and he was the athlete. This guy who now runs Ryzen was the athlete against the boxer. And they were just going to box, but they did it in a cage. They don't even do cages in Japan. They set up a cage. Right when the bell rings, he comes across the ring, kicks the guy in the leg. Double crosses him, cheats, breaks every rule, breaks every contract, everything that they had agreed on, kicks the boxer in the leg. And you know this boxer. Oh, he was a very good boxer. I'm trying to think of who it was. A very well-known name. The boxer literally turns, jumps onto the fence, climbs over it, comes down the back, and walks out. And they rule it a victory for the Japanese guy who now runs the organization by quitting, by whatever it was, because he had exited the cage. So they set this guy up, and for Floyd to think that anything above board is going to happen for him, he's wrong. And I don't know what it's going to be, but the screw job is coming.
Yeah, I don't know. It is exhibition, right? So it can always go back to that. It's hard to say. I feel like a lot of the Japanese shows were a little bit exhibition, you know, with, you know, what's the big guy's name? The ex-football player who was in Pride.
Is that Sapp?
Yeah, Bob Sapp.
Sure.
I mean, when I think of fighting in Japan, that's the kind of stuff I think about. When I fought in Japan, they told me to get bigger and come back, you know?
Sure.
So they want that freak show. They want that. So it's hard to say what's going to happen. I'm not going to feel too bad for Floyd either way, because I'm sure he's going to pocket plenty of money again.
Sure.
But that's interesting.
It is interesting. It's interesting that he's walking into it, you know, unless it's the fix that's supposed to be the other. I don't know. All I can tell you is it's not going to be a straight shoot. And then I should clarify this for you. So the word exhibition was used, and that's what Floyd signed up for. And Floyd came over here and told North American media, I'm just going to do an exhibition. Nothing to see here. The Japanese promoter stepped in and goes, oh, hold on, I think we're lost in transition. When I say exhibition, I mean extravaganza. It doesn't mean the same thing over here. If you think this is a scrimmage or a practice round or something for fun, then I apologize for using that word. But I did not mean it to the American interpreter. And that changed. I thought that was a big clue. Okay, you got Floyd to sign a contract that says exhibition, but then you came out and corrected it and goes, hey, exhibition means a special event over here. So see, there's already some weird stuff going on. I wouldn't be stunned if Floyd doesn't get on the plane and doesn't go out there. I mean, something here stinks, and they're not paying him near what, say, DAZN or Golden Boy or some other folks would do to go and do the same thing. So something very weird is going on here. And if Floyd isn't being set up, then Floyd is in on it. But something is off kilter. That much I am sure of.
Yeah, either it's not going to happen or Floyd's in on it. It's set up, and it's going to be, where this guy, lets Floyd go out there and look good, which why wouldn't they do that? It's going to bring press to their show. That guy will probably get a huge fight right after that.
Yeah.
It makes Floyd look cool, like he knows MMA.
Yep.
It's great that he wants to be a part of our sport. Thanks, Floyd.
Yeah, I suppose so. All right, Ed, I'm looking at the clock. We got to run. You got anything else? Anything you want to share?
No, man, it's great to be here.
Hopes, goes, fears, old story. Shout out to somebody.
Gosh.
Merry Christmas wish to the
Merry
kids.
Christmas.
Anything?
Love you, kids. It's good to be on, man. It's fun to be back in Portland and train with all you guys and being on your show.
Well, I'm happy you're here, man. And you caught me by surprise being here. I think Brandon had told me, and maybe I had misplaced it, but I'd love to redo this again and do some Team Quest stories. Maybe we'll get Nate down here. Nate's great at remembering some stuff and get everyone in and just have some fun. So every car comes with its share of stories. That ding in the bumper when you nervously picked up your first date, or the mileage you saved by riding your bike all summer. While you can't put a price tag on your stories now, with TrueCar, you can at least find out what your car is worth when it's time to trade it in or sell it. Just go to TrueCar. Simply enter your license plate number and watch how your car's details pop up. Then answer a few questions. Navigation, moonroof, high mileage. You already knew it was going to cost you. But now you're going to know how much of a hit it's going to be so you can plan ahead. When you're finished, you will get a true cash offer sent to you in minutes, which you can take to a local certified dealer and cash out or trade in. So when you're ready to experience a better way to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar today. True cash offers not available in all areas. All right, for Ed Herman, I'm Chael Sonnen. Until next time, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Podcast One is your one-stop shop for everything TV and pop culture.
A very candid, not even supposed to be on the record conversation.
Check out any of the Collider Network podcasts like TV Talk, Movie Talk, Collider Live, and more. And for you reality TV fans, Rob Cesternino's got you covered with Rob Has a Podcast.
This is a podcast
There's no
about
substance.
nothing.
Yeah.
You literally have a podcast about nothing.
Check out the Collider Network and Rob Has a Podcast every week on Podcast One or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. The president's tweeting that he'll win his border wall one way or the other, he says. The Senate passed it, the House is expected to, and the president says he's looking forward to signing it. A new criminal justice bill. Republican Senator Ted Cruz
is a major bill that moves in the direction of justice. It lowers mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug offenders.
The Fraternal Order of Police supports the bill, but the National Sheriff's Association does not. Millions of Americans are traveling for the holiday. The AAA's Tamara Johnson says big city travelers could have some real headaches.
You're going to see commute times anywhere from 3 to 4 times longer than normal.
She says a record-breaking number of us will be on the move for the holidays. You may soon pay more for your credit card purchases and that auto loan. The Fed is expected to raise interest rates 1/4 point today. If they do, that would be the 4th rate hike this year. I'm Rita Foley.